Okay, moving on to the next segment of the show. Let's start here. You guys remember last Monday on this show, I did a whole segment on the Jacksonville Jaguars and just how quickly their team fell apart. And the one main lesson that I brought out of that whole Jacksonville Jaguars scenario was that your championship window is never as long as you think it is. And one thing I've said over and over again this offseason, and I'm not, trying to repeat myself over and over again, but I've said it a lot. I think that case is exactly in place for the New Orleans Saints. And I think maybe this is going to be the final year for the New Orleans Saints if they're going to want to win a Super Bowl. And does that mean I personally think that they're going to be so good, and do I think they're going to, be a Super Bowl team? Not necessarily, but I just think if Drew Brees wants to win another Super Bowl during his time with the New Orleans Saints, this year has to be the year. Because if it's not this year, the window for this team is rapidly closing. And the Saints actually were in the news yesterday when rumors were swirling around about their star running, and the Saints apparently open to trading him. And a couple things off the bat I want to say about this. Number one, I do not think the New Orleans Saints are trading Alvin Kamara, and I don't really think anything major of that report. I think when you look at the situation a little closely, Alvin Kamara has been very successful since he's came into the National Football League. And he is a player that when you look at what he's done and his overall resume, yeah, he does deserve to make some money. But at the same time, the New Orleans Saints aren't going to trade him. But the other thing I'll say about this scenario is this. The Saints, when you look at the way their team is built, if they ever were, God forbid, going to trade Alvin Kamara, I would be pretty upset. Because, as I said in the beginning of this show, Drew Brees, I think this is going to be the last year for him. He's not getting any younger. And when you look at this team around him, they've gone really for the big prize. They've gone for that big Super Bowl over the last couple of years, and it hasn't worked out. And it is really hard when you're a coach and when you're a quarterback to rally your team around you and say, we're going to a Super Bowl, and I'm confident in that statement 4 years in a row. When you look at the New Orleans Saints and what they've done over the last couple of years, they had the game against the Minnesota Vikings in the Minneapolis Miracle, and that was absolutely a game they should have won. Same thing with the game against the LA Rams. The BS pass interference call, we get it. The Saints were the team that deserved to win that game. But last year, where were the excuses? You guys just got beat at home, which you were telling the league basically for the last 2 years that you had the best home field advantage in the NFL. And going into that game, I really did think there was a chance you did. But you're really going to let Kirk Cousins come into your building and, just beat you like that and send you home like that? Going into last season, I thought it was going to be the revenge tour season for the New Orleans Saints. I thought they were going to just look at everyone on their schedule and beat them. And for the most part, in the beginning of the season, even with Drew Brees hurt, they did that. But for the second year in a row, they kind of faded down the stretch. When you look at the 2019 New Orleans Saints, yeah, they went 13-3, and they lost that game to the 49ers, but they didn't really have that many great wins on their resume towards the end of the season. And I think the Minnesota Vikings in the first round of the playoffs just showed nothing lasts forever. And to be honest with you guys, the more and more, and the closer I look at this New Orleans Saints team, I'm not denying they have just a bunch of talent all around this roster. And I'm not even talking about the quarterback position primarily. When you look at Michael Thomas and how good of a receiver he is, Alvin Kamara, their offensive line is just still loaded with all pros. On defense, they have Cam Jordan, Kiko Alonso, Demario Davis, Von Bell, he's not there anymore, I'm sorry, but Marcus Williams, Marshawn Lattimore, they pick up Janoris Jenkins. So they have a lot of guys on this New Orleans Saints team that could play. They also bring in Emmanuel Sanders, so there is talent just spread across this roster. But the weird thing is this, and this may be a quote-unquote hot take, but the closer and closer I look at Sean Payton's resume, I think he's an overrated coach. And even though he did win that Super Bowl and he is responsible for one of the best, probably the best coaching decision in the history of the National Football League when he decided to call that onside kick in that game against the Indianapolis Colts. Like, I'm not denying that. Sean Payton is an awesome coach and he probably will be in the Hall of Fame one day. But at the same time, I think he's overrated when you consider the fact that for the last 10 years, he's had a healthy Hall of Fame quarterback that he hasn't even gotten back to another Super Bowl with. How do you go 7-9 ever with a healthy Drew Brees? He did that twice. And those are seasons that when you look at Sean Payton's resume, not a lot of people talk about. And to be honest, those are kind of the reasons why I don't have that much confidence in the New Orleans Saints this year. You ask most people right now, like your average football fan, who is coming out of the NFC this year. Some people are going to say San Francisco, and they are the defending NFC champions, and rightfully so. I understand why some people would say that the San Francisco 49ers are the favorite to come out of the NFC. But besides them, the team most people are going to say is the New Orleans Saints. And on paper, from a pure talent perspective, absolutely. They're one of the 5 most talented teams in football. But for some reason, when I hear that, the rumblings that they may be trading Alvin Kamara, that's really not good because this team should just be focused on one thing, and that is winning a championship. And to be honest, when you look at their track record over the past 10 years, that's something they haven't done. And if I was a Saints fan, I would kind of be worried about how last year's season ended. You cannot lose that game at home to the Minnesota Vikings when you were in that spot. And you're the New Orleans Saints. You're at home. You're playing against a guy who has never won. Not only has he never won a playoff game, but he's never won any primetime game ever. And you let him come into your building and beat you when you were the big bad New Orleans Saints. You were the guys that I thought the year before that was the best team in football. And you let Kirk Cousins come into your crib and do that? No excuses. Really none. And last year, I know a lot of people are going to say, how could you say Sean Payton is overrated when Teddy Bridgewater came in and went like 5-0? And I'll give Teddy Bridgewater credit for that. He didn't do anything spectacular, but he did, win a bunch of games. But when you look at the teams he beat for the New Orleans Saints after Drew Brees got hurt, let's see who it was. Let me just go back to this 2019 Saints season. So last year, Drew Brees got hurt in Week 2 against the Rams. They then beat Seattle, so that's a good win. Beat Dallas at home, 12-10, so the Saints defense was really the main reason why they won that game. They beat Tampa Bay, they beat Jacksonville, they beat Chicago, Arizona. And that's when Drew Brees got back. So, I don't know, man. Like, the Saints last year, the more closely I look at their schedule, it was pretty easy in the regular season. And I don't know, I just think the Saints are being a little overvalued by a lot of people in the media. I think the other thing to throw into the equation here is this. The NFC, when you compare it to the AFC, is just a much deeper and a much tougher conference. I think it's kind of similar to the way the NBA is with the East and the Western Conference. I think both of those conferences are good, both have their strengths, but they're clearly much different because when you look at it closely, like one conference has like two teams, most people would say, the Ravens or the Chiefs, that they would consider to be the front runner to come out of that conference and go to the Super Bowl. When you look at the NFC, there are more teams than ever. I think right now, when you ask the average football fan, like when you look at the NFC, what teams do you feel good about coming into this season? I think your average football fan is going to say like 12 of the 13 of the 16 teams in the NFC, they're going to be feeling pretty good about. And when you look at the New Orleans Saints, I understand their division isn't crazy, but I think Carolina got much better when you look at the fact that they brought in Teddy Bridgewater, Robbie Anderson, they have Christian McCaffrey. DJ Moore is ready, I think, to be one of the breakout receivers in the National Football League, so I think they're going to be much improved. Atlanta, say what you want about them. I know they're a team that we could never really trust, but their coach is coaching for his job. Maybe that will give them some motivation. I don't know if I really like the Falcons that much, but what I will say is they did end last season playing the best football of their career. The best football of the season they did the whole season, and they ended up saving Dan Quinn and his job. So maybe they keep that momentum going. And we know the Buccaneers have Tom Brady. When I look at this New Orleans Saints team, I think they're going to be disappointing this season. There are a lot of people Super Bowls pick. I'm just not that high on them. I think over the last couple regular seasons, especially towards the end, we've kind of seen Drew Brees and his game decline a little bit. He's been getting banged up a little bit, and I do think the fact is that he signed that contract with NBC during the offseason. I think this is Drew Brees' last season for the Saints, and it's one last ride to see if he could bring another Super Bowl back to the city of New Orleans. We all know this guy is a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he has accomplished a lot throughout his career. But at the same time, let's face facts. Over the last couple playoffs, the New Orleans Saints have been very disappointing, especially when you consider how good those regular season teams were back in the day. Like in 2017, I know the Eagles won the Super Bowl and Nick Foles, and that was a great story, but that New Orleans Saints team was really good. And the football they were playing in the backstretch of the season, they had me thinking, okay, maybe this team could win the Super Bowl. And if they beat the Minnesota Vikings, maybe they do go into Philadelphia and win. The following year, you look at the Saints when they played the LA Rams, I totally understand they got screwed in that game. But if you look at it, the week before that game, the New Orleans Saints played the Philadelphia Eagles at home. A Philadelphia Eagle team who had Carson Wentz out and Nick Foles as their starting quarterback. That game was in New Orleans. And once again, we always talk about how good of a home field advantage the Mercedes-Benz Superdome is to the New Orleans Saints. And in that game, the New Orleans Saints were the 1 seed. The Philadelphia Eagles were the 6 seed. And keep in mind, the week before that, Philadelphia should have lost. Chicago should have moved on because Cody Parkey just missed that very easy kick. But anyway, Philadelphia goes to New Orleans, and if Alshon Jeffrey doesn't drop that ball in the end zone, the Saints lose to the Eagles. And that's very, very disappointing, even more than I would say the BS pass interference loss to the LA Rams. And even in that loss against the LA Rams, people forget the Saints won the coin toss in overtime. I'm not saying the refs didn't blow the game. But after the Roby Coleman play was called, it's not like the Rams won the game. Like, the game was still going on. The Saints still had a chance. And when you look at it, they had the ball in overtime to start the game, and Drew Brees fumbled the ball. And the Rams took advantage and they won. And the Rams took advantage and they won. There's nothing the Saints, could say. Like, they had a shot. And the following year, once again, against the Vikings, no excuses. So, if I was a fan of the New Orleans Saints, I would feel cautiously optimistic going into the season, but at the same time, I would always remember the last 3 years, my team really had a golden opportunity to win the Super Bowl. And the fact is that it is just so hard to do that 4 years in a row, to bring your team on a really big push, especially when your quarterback is older. He's, I think declined a little bit as the back end of the season has arrived over the last couple seasons. And when you consider how tough the NFC is, the fact that they had their star running back, who most people expect them to pay sometime soon, the fact that a report came out that said the Saints would be apparently quote unquote okay with trading him, these are all bad signs. And I'm going to be recording the NFL preview prediction episode next week, as I mentioned in the intro segment of this show, but this is just a spoiler. I am not as high on the New Orleans Saints as most. And this is it. If Drew Brees doesn't win a Super Bowl this year with the New Orleans Saints, I think it could be the last ride. I think Super Bowl or not, Drew Brees retires after this year, and this is the last ride. If the Saints want to bring another championship back home, they have to win it this year.